Welcome to another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think Business.
Think Business is made possible by funding from the ICE Lab at Western, supporting innovative business in the rural Southwest.
Become a Think Radio Presents partner at patreon.com, and you'll also get access to premium content you won't find anywhere else. Join us today.
My guest today is All Sports Replay Manager Pete Jantz. Jantz joins me today to talk about the growing practice of recycling, reusing, and refurbishing previously owned sports equipment. For nearly 20 years, he has worked at the Colorado consignment shop called All Sports Replay. The company bridges the gap between people with outdated or unused equipment cluttering up their garage and those looking for good deals for themselves or for their kids. But it's a business model that does more than just make money. For instance, those who can't afford new gear are given access to new sports. And the environment is spared the burden of all that waste for at least a few more years. Kind of makes you wonder what other replay business opportunities are waiting out there. Pete, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you've been at All Sports for a long time.
Yeah, I started there when I moved to Gunnison from Columbus, Ohio in 2000. Looking for a job, got a job at City Market for 6 months and worked at All Sports Replay and worked for 3 months straight until I finally just went to All Sports.
Yeah, it was kind of a typical story, really. You come here to go to school and work 4 jobs
yeah.
to get by, but it's not all that typical to, find a niche like you have and stay put for this long.
Yeah, I'm not a big travel guy. I like a nice home base.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess community is important to me. I like knowing my neighbors who I live next door to, and I think Gunnison's a small enough place where you can meet or know a lot of people,
right?
Which I guess has its negatives too, but
yeah. So, are you a sports guy?
I would say no.
You shouldn't tell your customers that. Maybe we'll.
Well, team sports. I grew up riding my bike and doing sportsman stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what made you land at All Sports Replay then?
I had a lot of experience working at a bike shop. I managed a bike shop before I moved out here to go back to school, and I like working on bikes was kind of my in, and it really kind of started to progress because I didn't want to necessarily work just at a bike shop because it gets, I wouldn't say boring, but winter months can be a little tight. Where at All Sports Replay, it's winter season, and then when you get done with that, when I get tired of all the winter stuff, I get lucky it's now bike season or summer season,
right.
And then I get to do that, and then when that starts to get kind of overwhelming, it starts to slow down, and you move back into the next season. So there's
a little bit of variety, and that's the name of the business is All Sports Replay. I mean, you guys serve up lots of different things.
Yeah, I know a lot about like hockey. I don't play hockey, but I like watching hockey.
Uh-huh.
I used to do some rock climbing, and All Sports is kind of allows me to try a new sport. I give myself like a $200 new sport kind of budget. And I can try something, and if I don't like it, I just take stuff back to work and resell it, and I'm not out, $1,000 for skis.
So you're one of your best customers.
Oh, it's real hard sometimes working there. Yeah, there's a lot of good gear that comes through. Or
yeah. Well, so give me an example of something you bought and then immediately took back because you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is not for me.
Ice climbing never really seemed to work out. I kind of decided last year that I'm just not really a downhill skier. I like cross-country skiing.
Mm-hmm.
I've had snowshoes before that I got rid of because cross country skiing was more fun.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Well, look, this really brings up one of the major benefits of the kind of business that you operate there. And that is you can try something and it's relatively low risk. You're not going in and paying retail prices for things.
Oh, yeah. I think it's why the store really works well in this valley because there's so much to do as far as outdoor activities that it's kind of hard to pick just one, you know? And it allows people to try other things and kind of expand what they do outside instead of saying, I can only afford to be a skier in the wintertime. And then I know people that sell off their skis so they can buy a bike for the summer, and then they sell off the bike to buy the skis for the next winter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a slow progression of moving up or deciding that maybe you just don't like a sport. And yeah, that's a place for that too.
Yeah. Well, and I think about from the perspective of a parent too. You know, you want to expose your kids to a lot of different things, but man, oh man, you can spend a lot of money in a hurry.
Yeah, I've seen it with hockey. Hockey's fairly gear intensive, and kids grow out of it. So we see a lot of that product kind of come through, a lot of the kids' stuff, because they grow out of it before they wear it out. And we actually had an employee that lived in the valley, had moved away and had moved back, and he was working there. And Vic's probably 6'2", and there was a pair of skates that came in were like a kid's size 3 that had his name on the bottom. And he's like, these are mine from when I was like 4 or 6.
No way.
And they had been floating around the valley for 20 years, you know, and still getting used, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is a fantastic story.
Yeah, so...
well, because without some sort of system, I mean, whether it's a community swap or somebody actually making a business out of this, what happens to that gear? What?
That's an excellent question. I don't know how people buy new stuff every year or just think, oh, I need a new color jacket. It seems... I don't live that lifestyle, but...
yeah, so there's a mindset there. Some people do that. But at what cost? Because not only is your own closet getting clogged with this stuff, right? Your garage is full of it. But every time you buy a new set of skis or a new whatever it happens to be, a lot of resources go into that.
Oh, yeah. There's, shipping and... You know, getting like a bike, you got to get it to the store. It probably comes from China, depending on where your bikes are coming from.
Right.
And then you have to put it together and then sell it. And there's a lot of, work goes into, hey, here's a brand new bike you can buy. And I think some of that can be a little bit fashionable, or there's definitely trends. So the store, I find, is kind of 3 years behind trends.
That's about right.
Yeah, like we're starting to see a little bit more like stand-up paddle boards come in, but we're only seeing a couple a year. We have a lot of demand for it because they're pretty pricey for something new. And I think it's nice that people could at least go out, and there's some place that rent it now. You can go out and rent one before you just throw down tons of money.
Well, you know, if you followed the news at all recently, you know that the world system for recycling, particularly plastic items, is in chaos.
Oh, yeah. I just read an article where there were some air quality issues because they were burning the stuff that China wasn't buying from us anymore.
And they're not buying anything anymore. I mean, the statistics that I saw was 70% of recycled plastic in the United States used to go to China. 95% from the European Union wound up there. And now none of it's going there, or very, very little. So we're doing things like burning it. We're putting it in the landfill now. In some cases, it just winds up in the environment and, you know, washes into the oceans and streams. So my question to you is, do you think that All Sports Replay, you know, been around a long time now? Andy started it in '96. Was that a visionary sort of step? I mean, I know that that he's filled a lot of functions. We've talked about that, access to sports and so forth. But from an environmental standpoint, the world has changed since '96. Do you think that this business is sort of on the leading edge of something that really needs to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, from like a local standpoint, I think it's something that's a little easier to do. I think it started off all sports, you're starting a new company and you're trying to save some money here and there. So you get used displays and maybe you don't pay for the store to make it look super nice, which is kind of okay because you're selling mostly used stuff. But I think it started to be more ingrained into like the business where we recycle our cardboard and like the normal recyclable stuff, but also on like bicycles where you have some stuff that wears out.
What happens to it?
Yeah. So like all the metal stuff we would save, and we'd have a guy that would come in and pick up the scrap metal, and he would make some money off of it and didn't charge us. So it worked out. And there's another guy that used to work there that would come in and actually go through it because it has to be somewhat can't be as mixed as what we give them sometimes. But he would go through and separate all the different metals and take it to Montrose, and he'd make some money himself. So that works out for us and him.
Yeah, so here you are, a business, your whole business model is about reusing, right?
Yeah.
And now you're saying you've also adopted these practices of recycling. But it brings up to me the question that I've thought about for a long time, and that is if you trust government or even nonprofits to try to tackle this kind of problem, I don't know, sometimes the results seem mixed. But my question to you is, do you think business itself, businesses like yours, can actually step in and meet this need of what do we do with all this stuff?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about All Sports Replay is we see the middle to the end use. There's some stuff we get in, it's like, it's done. Like, I hope you've enjoyed your skis, but you can no longer use them, It's just, there's a
Things
life.
do eventually get there, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it is the bigger steps are going to be from people that are like, I'm not going to wait on the government to make rules on stuff like that. I can do it myself, or I can do it how I think it should be done without regulations.
Well, and if I'm an entrepreneur, I can actually make a living at it.
Yeah. And it's kind of hard because Gunnison's such a small, I think All Sports Replay works because of the small community. And you really get to see stuff come in or see brands that, like, that's still a nice jacket. It's 10 years old, but it's still a durable good, where you go to some other stores and it's like, how long is that supposed to last? And I don't think people realize on what the life expectancy for a product and what you pay. So usually the inexpensive stuff isn't going to last very long. And I think it's hard. People want to have a bunch of different things instead of having maybe one nice thing. And I think it's starting to change a little bit as far as people reusing water bottles or coffee mugs instead of just getting one filled. There's certain businesses that are starting to say, hey, we can save some stuff, not only money, but also trash, putting stuff into the landfill. And I think it's starting to shift a little bit.
Well, that's a great question. Then you've been there going on 20 years.
Yeah.
What changes have you seen in that period of time? And I'm specifically talking about your customer base. Who is it that walks through the door there, and what is their mindset? What are their goals?
There's
typically?
a lot of different customers that come in the store, and like basically we have some people that just are selling some old gear and trying to make some money. Some people that just want to buy something and they don't necessarily want to spend money on something new. I forgot my gloves at home. I'm here for a ski week. I just need a used pair.
Yeah.
We get those customers. And then there's the customers that sell items there and also buy items there. And I think for me, that's like the perfect customer. And not only is it a repeat customer, but you're a repeat customer on two levels where they're buying stuff and selling stuff. And it really, you can kind of see the circle of life as far as gear goes, you know, as kids grow out of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they can come in and upgrade to the next size. But also, it changes as far as the economy goes. When the economy is kind of in a slump, people maybe look at used gear a little bit more instead of just buying new. And when it starts to boom, they expand their sports a little bit more. Or maybe they get a second bike.
Right. Yeah, and there's a time for buying new stuff. I mean, right? Let's not forget that. If no one was buying new stuff, it wouldn't come to you 3 to 5 years later. So there's a time for that. But really, I'm interested to know if you think a lot of those people coming in are motivated mostly by the saving or making a little money off of the gear that they bought 4 years ago, or if there's more of a mindset starting to set in, it's like, no, this is the right thing to do. I could go buy something new, but I'm not going to.
That's a hard question. I mean, I think that some people would want to buy something, but maybe keep it local a little bit more. But in Gunnison, it's hard to have everything for everyone. And with the internet, it's very easy to go on and find exactly what you want and get it shipped. So it's it's a weird customer base, and I don't know, I feel like the internet's starting to play a little bit more of a change as far as how people shop for sure. But I see a lot of people, a lot more wanting to keep business local, which is a pretty big thing. We see it, you know, people on vacation come up to ski, but they go out to dinner and those waitresses, you know, then come to the store and spend their tips and keep it kind of a little bit more in the valley, which is nice to see.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's part of what I think the potential of your kind of business really is that it is local. It is keeping things out of the landfill. It is keeping things from being shipped to China, perhaps. And it's just providing this necessary function in society now of smaller is better, old is okay, used is the new, it can become the new chic. Do you agree with that? Do you see that mindset at all?
I think people finally realize, I don't want to say chasing the dream, but advertisers do a very good job of making you want the cool new thing. But after a while, maybe it's an age thing. It's like, I don't need that. Or I have it, but instead of just getting a new one, maybe I'll get it fixed and I can make it last a little bit longer before it wears out. I think people are starting to see that a little bit more as far as a society. Yeah. There's some people that see it, and some people it goes right over their head. They don't think about end use.
Yeah. Well, this idea that a new pair of skis doesn't make you any happier than a perfectly functional pair that gets you down the mountain just as well.
Yeah. You know, I think sometimes it's a motivation. It's like you get new skis, you're excited to do a little bit more skiing. And especially if you're, at least gear-wise, there's a lot of technology that has been going into stuff. So skis...
That's true.
10 years ago...
They're different.
Are way different. You know, you get shaped, and now it's the camber's different and using different materials and different, like, wax treatments for the base.
Yeah. I hear that a lot about bikes that, you know, You get on a brand new bike, and yeah, it's several $1,000s, but it's different from the one you bought 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think the bike industry is struggling a little bit, so they're trying to come up with new things that people don't have, so they'll buy new bikes. And that's fine, but there's a lot of shops that are struggling, and they're finding that taking in used bikes as far as like a trade-in and some money off of a new bike is starting to come into the business model a little bit more, I think.
Well, I read today that big companies, North Face, Patagonia, even IKEA with furniture, and so it's not limited to any one particular sector, they're starting to buy back used stuff from their customers as well.
Yeah,
they see the value of it.
There's some big programs, yes. I guess I'm a huge Patagonia fan just because they make a nice durable product. It works well, but also the way their company works, where I can buy something at work, and when the zipper blows out, I can send it back and then replace the zipper, or I can have it done locally too and make it last a little bit longer.
Well, and you know that in their management decisions, they're thinking about a lot of these same issues that we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, it was just nice to see when they took their tax break and the $10 million, they donated it to environmental causes.
That kind of thing. And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm just seeing evidence in big industry and in small companies like yours, the one that you work for, that we're just shifting. We're starting to get it. But I want to shift gears right now and ask you to talk to the person who's listening to this, and they're in their own small community, or it doesn't have to be small, and they're thinking, I'd love to get in that business. You've got 20 years under your belt running this shop, helping to run it. What advice would you give to somebody who's looking at this as a way to start a business and succeed?
Well, I mean, as far as used gear goes, I think that's already kind of happened, where you don't need to necessarily have a storefront or a business. There's people that sell stuff on eBay or online, and it allows you to hit a bigger market for maybe a niche item that might not sell in the valley. We don't sell a ton of snorkels here for scuba because it's not really close.
Right.
But you get online, and now your market is a lot bigger, and you can do stuff from your home, or at least your garage, and start that way where people.
So if you were going to do that, okay, let's take that pathway. How do you go about connecting with the source, the people who have the gear that could, you would either go out and buy it from them, or they put it on consignment. How do you make that connection?
At least as far as all sports is concerned, it's a lot of word of mouth from people coming into town, and they go out to eat, and they're like, hey, where can I get this? And people rattle off something, or I really like this place. And that's word of mouth from that standpoint would be from customers or happy customers. The other is doing stuff in the community. And it doesn't have to be big and flashy, but we try to volunteer for events, kind of get us out there. We actually closed the store last year for a big bike ride, and all the employees are supposed to work that day went and volunteered for this bike race. So it was pretty fun because it's still work, but you're out of work. And there's people in the community see you out doing that stuff.
Well, there's a word that you keep using over and over again, and that's community. Granted, if you're going to sell online, maybe your community ties are a little bit harder to maintain and establish. But if you're going to have a shop like All Sports Replay, be involved in the community.
Yeah, physical location. Yeah, and you can't just sit there. You have to be active. And I think it's not super hard because people usually starting up a business are passionate about something. And I think that passion can kind of shine through as far as your business model goes and really kind of getting started, because you need that, because it's not easy the first couple years of any business, I'm
Well,
sure.
so let's talk about that. What are the big challenges that you face that are particular to this business?
Staffing is a problem in this
We'll
town.
ask a restaurant owner or anybody, they'll tell you that, right?
Yeah, but I've learned a lot of different stuff about a lot of different sports I don't do, and you kind of have to tell people, it's like, I don't know about kayaks. It's not my thing. I know a little bit, but if you're looking for super expert, maybe you need to go to some place that maybe sells them new, and they are a little bit more in tune in exactly what every little detail of the product is. So it's hard to do that with a company.
Okay,
and
so
you have so much different stuff. You never know what's going to come in, so that's a problem. Having a place, there's some places need foot traffic and some places don't, and I think that can really make or break a business, as far as also where kind of you place yourself in that community physically.
yeah.
If you can run it out of your garage, that's fine, as long as people don't need to come by your garage.
Right, or just happen to find you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they say the top 3 things to consider when starting a business, a brick and mortar business, is location, location, and location.
Yeah. Well, knowing what your target customer is.
Okay, so
like
market
knowing
research.
your customer, because what I like is fine, but if I'm trying to sell stuff to people, I need to have what they want to buy, not what I want to sell. And I think that kind of keeps you up on trends a little bit more, or what's popular.
Well, but in the business that you're in, that kind of puts you at the mercy of what people are wanting to sell, right? You can't just go to a manufacturer and place an order based on what you think people want. You have to wait for that to come in the door.
Yeah, and that's a big problem for us too. Like as lacrosse gets a little bit more popular, we don't really have any lacrosse stuff, but to do an opening order is like a $5,000 order, and that could be 3 years worth of lacrosse stuff. And it's like we just can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, and we got rid of hockey as far as new items because it's kind of slowed down, and also it's you spend all this money and this time, then you break even on it. It's like
So why did we do that?
Yeah, let's refocus. And that's what happened at all sports. Replay was hockey was kind of slowing down, and we said, kind of, what else can we do? Not just to fill time, but fill something. So we started doing more ski repair. We've done skis for a long time, but we never worked on them. So now we can do bindings. We have a base grinder. We can fix skis, and that's kind of filled the void of that hockey, where we used to sell a lot more hockey stuff.
Sure. Well, and I would just point out that once again, that service is keeping gear out of the landfill for a little bit longer. Eventually, it's going to go there. But if you can bring it in and have it repaired, put another 5 years of life on it, man, there's more than just money involved with that.
Yeah.
There's more than just convenience involved with that. There's actual social and planetary value in it.
Yeah.
And so my question, one of my last questions for you is, do you guys think about that? I mean, as you run your business, are you aware of this service that this kind of business provides?
Sometimes. I don't usually think about it a ton because it's ingrained in the way we do business, where we have people come in and say, hey, do you have any old bike parts? It just happened last week. Someone from Colorado Springs, she makes some stuff with old bike parts. So we let her dig through, And she came back into town and had made us a little cool Colorado flag thing with old barnwood and some bike parts. And she's like, "Oh, here, thanks for giving me this stuff." And it's like,
that's awesome.
yeah. I mean, we could have just chucked it in the trash, but we decided that we could recycle it would be the better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And even past that is where someone else is getting a use out of it before we even recycle it. They change it into something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, keeping stuff out of the landfill or reusing it, I think plays a pretty big part.
Well, it just seems to me that that's the future. And
I hope so.
Whether you're talking about sports gear or lots of other things. I mean, we could be having this conversation about appliances, lots of different things. There's opportunity here for an entrepreneur, but also the chance to actually make a difference. And I appreciate that. And I've always loved that about All Sports Replay.
Well, that's one of the nice things about working there. I need a lot of job satisfaction as far as getting stuff done or fixing a bike and seeing how you can do other things with once you kind of get all your plans in place. It doesn't take a lot of time. Recycling something and taking care of some of your gear can go a long way, and it doesn't take a ton of time or a ton of money, which I think is what people complain about. I don't have time for this or the money for that. A little bit of effort, a little elbow grease can go a long way with that. And once you start in one area, it's easy to move on or see other opportunities in other areas. So,
well, that is a great note to end on, that this is possible and just not as hard as we've led ourselves to believe.
Yeah.
Pete, thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
Think Radio Presents is a production of Alan Morris Media. The show's producer is Isa Forrest. Associate producer, Aaron Lewis.
Thanks for listening. Become a Think Radio Presents partner at patreon.com, and you'll also get access to premium content you won't find anywhere else. To leave a comment on today's show or to suggest a great story for a future episode, visit thinkradiopresents.com. Tune in next week for another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think Business.